Greetings, friends. One of the disciplines that we normally observe during Lent is that of fasting. And I would just like to express a word on that subject at this time. One of the simple definitions of fasting is that we abstain from food for spiritual purposes. The best starting point for a study of the Christian discipline of fasting is to be found in the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 to 18, Christ gave instructions to his disciples on three related duties: giving alms, praying, and fasting. In each case, he placed his main emphasis upon the motive and warned against religious pride for the sake of impressing others. With this qualification, he assumed that all his disciples would practice all three of these disciplines. This is indicated by the language that he used concerning each. In the second verse, he said, "Whenever you give alms." In verse 6, he said, "Whenever you pray." And in verse 16, he said, "And whenever you fast." And in verse 17, "But when you fast." In no case did Christ say if, but always when. The inference is clear. Christ expected that all his disciples would regularly practice all three of these disciplines. In particular, the parallel between prayer and fasting is exact. If Christ expected his disciples to pray regularly, then by the same token, he expected them also to fast regularly. How does fasting work? Fasting is also a means by which a believer brings his or her body into subjection. In 1 Corinthians 9 and verse 27, Paul said, "But I keep under my body, and I bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway." Our bodies, with their physical organs and appetites, make wonderful servants, but terrible masters. Thus, it is necessary to keep them always in subjection. Each time a Christian practices fasting for this purpose, he is serving notice on his body. You are the servant, not the master. In Galatians 5 and verse 17, Paul laid bare the direct opposition that exists between the Holy Spirit of God and the carnal nature of human beings. For the flesh lusts against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other. Fasting deals with the two great barriers to the Holy Spirit that are erected by humans' carnal nature. These are the stubborn self-will of the soul and the insistent, self-gratifying appetites of the body. Rightly practiced, fasting brings both soul and body into subjection to the Holy Spirit. It is important to understand that fasting changes us, but does not change God. The Holy Spirit, being God, is both omnipotent and unchanging. Fasting breaks down the barriers in our carnal nature that stands in the way of the Holy Spirit's omnipotence. With these barriers removed, the Holy Spirit can work unhindered in his fullness through our prayers. And just to give a word that we are able during the season to practice two types of fasting. One, the Wesleyan fast, which begins on Thursday after having our first meal and breaking the fast on Friday. Also, we have what we call the Daniel fast, where we abstain from certain foods for the season and to discipline our minds to that which is necessary for its nurture. Therefore, I pray and hope that we'll have a disciplined period of fasting during this Lenten season. Every blessing.